Hi everyone, I'm Aviva Peisach, and in the next 25 minutes, I want to take you on a journey from hero to zero. Yeah, you heard right. This is the journey we've taken in Wix from a hero culture to a zero-error one, and what I hope you'll gain out of it is both a sense of pride of what we achieved together, a perspective into the thinking behind the evolution, and ideally also some inspiration to more ideas on how we can get even closer to the desired zero. So what are these hero and zero cultures I talk about? Excellent question. You're sharp today. Okay, so hero culture is a culture where we have a lot of chaos and noise, lots of production issues, and lack of tools to be able to handle them. And therefore, we rely on external heroes to come and save the day. Whereas a zero-error culture is a culture where we have much less issues, as close to zero as possible, and we have much more out-of-the-box tools that help us both prevent the issues and also handle them when they occur. So we don't need to rely on external heroes, and instead we can rely on our inner hero. So, hi again, I'm Aviva, and I possess many hero and zero powers. I'm both the head of the server guild and the head of the identity company. Feel free to cheer whenever you like. That worked immediately. Thank you. Don't you feel warmer? Amazing. I'm the proud mother of 3 kids and the proud wife of 1 husband. I'm a public speaker. I'm sending the recording to my husband, don't worry. I'm a public speaker. I'm a teacher of coding in elementary school. I'm a belly dancer. I'm the author of a children's book. And I'm a passionate women in tech activist. But one of my main passions is resilience, which is why I've been leading many of the initiatives we'll be talking about here today. Okay, so to start our journey, let's start at the genesis of time. Initially, when we had our first server lines of code in production, we didn't have any visibility into production, no metrics, no alerts, just darkness over the void. And therefore, we relied on our customers to let us know that we have issues, and we relied on hero developers that knew every line of code to be able to investigate the issue, find the root cause, and fix it. Then we said, let there be light. And we introduced New Relic. So New Relic came in with metrics and alerts and cool dashboards that gave us the visibility we were missing into production, which was very nice. However, if we wanted to create a dashboard that is more tailor-made to our needs, what we needed to do is create it with an SQL-like language that required a bit of heroism and expertise. Then we introduced Grafana. Grafana came in with the same metrics and alerts as New Relic did. However, we added a lot of custom Wix data points, data sources, such as app logs, BI event, traces, etc., and created many out-of-the-box dashboards tailored to our flows and needs. So all you need to do today is just deploy your service into production, and you get all these dashboards out of the box. You can still customize them, but that would be probably a more rare occasion. With alerts, we went through a similar journey. We started off with every team being able to set up their own alerts and thresholds. But that created a lot of noise and gaps and misalignment because not all teams created all the needed alerts, which is why we created the SLO manager, the service level objective manager, that creates all these alerts out of the box with predefined thresholds. So again, you can still customize, but all you need to do is deploy your service, deploy your new endpoint, and you get these alerts out of the box. With troubleshooting, that also required a lot of expertise and a lot of heroism, we put in a lot of tools and automation to ease up the troubleshooting process. We did that with views like error distribution that allow you to very easily see where most of your errors come from. If it's a specific DC, a specific pod, a specific metasite. We introduced distributed tracing that ease up the process of troubleshooting performance issues where you can see your bottlenecks throughout the service call chain. We also introduced flame graphs and continuous profiling to ease up troubleshooting of memory and CPU consumption issues. And we built Alert Enricher that actually automates the troubleshooting steps for us. And to present maximum visibility into production, we also introduced Rookout that allows you to debug your code directly in production. OK, amazing. We really eased up the whole production handling process, right? So are we there yet? Are we at 0? Well, not really, because up till now, we focused on the incident lifecycle. From the time the production issue occurred till it was acted and then resolved, and we introduced many tools that eased up this process. But issues and errors can occur and also can be prevented much earlier, actually from the beginning of our development lifecycle, as early as design and implementation. So we decided to focus on these phases and see how we can automate the prevention of errors to begin with. So let's take it from the end to the beginning. For the rollout phase, we created tools that allowed us to automate the deployment process, to both do it gradually, monitor for errors, and automatically roll back if we had issues. For testing, we created testing guidelines that guide you through how to create the most cost-effective tests and increase your confidence in production. And for design, we gathered all our lessons learned and common practices on building resilient systems in production and put it into a document. So whenever you're designing your next solution, you can always consult with the document, which is super cool. However, this is still a lot of reading to do, right? A lot of manual steps that we need to take and a lot of things we can miss along the way. And therefore, we decided to automate these guidelines. Anyone here knows how? How do we automate guidelines? Almost. Nile, OK? We automated these guidelines out of the box with Nile. So let's try and understand how that works. How does Nile automate guidelines for us? So let's look at a few examples. The resilience guidelines tell us to always validate our inputs, right? So that we prevent cases where problematic inputs crash our system. With Nile, all you need to do is define your proto, and the validations are created for you out of the box. And they even create standard errors whenever they fail. The guidelines also tell us to always introduce limits, so that excessive callers don't hog all our resources, right? Memory and CPU. With Nile, we have out-of-the-box limits, both for input and output params for our queries. The guidelines also tell us to introduce timeouts, so that lengthy processes won't put our service into a halt. And with Nile, we get these limits out of the box, both for RPC calls and DB connectivity. The guidelines also tell us to always prefer async communication over sync communication, so we reduce the dependency between the services. And Nile also makes it really easy for us to build async communication with things like domain events, ASIC infra, etc. And in a similar way, the guidelines also tell us to always design for eventual consistency and concurrency, and we get these implementations out of the box. For testing, Nile comes with an out-of-the-box testing environment that makes it really easy for us to mock our external dependencies, like RPC calls and databases, and adds tools like randoms and matchers that makes writing tests even easier. OK, super cool. We automated the prevention of errors from as early as design. We must be at 0, right? Right? Well, we have a mix now. Well, not yet. To understand why, let me ask you a question. Remember the SLO manager I mentioned before? Who here knows what's the default threshold for errors coming out from SLO? Very educated bunch here. Yes, 1%. Now a follow-up question. Is 1% good or bad? It depends. We have a winner, Avia. Prizes afterwards. Correct, it depends. It actually depends on the RPM, right? Because if we have an RPM of 100, that's great, because every error could potentially be alerted and we need to deal with it. However, if we have an RPM of 100,000, 1,000 errors might go by without us even noticing, which is not that great, is it? Also, this threshold approach made us a bit numb to the user pain of errors. What we need to remember is that every error, even a single one, hurts a user, okay? Because it hinders their user experience. When these errors accumulate, they make our users frustrated because they can't use our product. Right, and we also had users that actually left us because they felt our quality was not as good as they need. So we decided not to aim for any specific threshold, and instead aim for 0 errors, okay? So that every error would produce an alert, and we have to handle it. And we also decided to apply it not only from production phase, but as early as development. Okay, so that sounds revolutionary, right? But how can we apply such a thing? So we fairly easily added a new alert into SLO, called it the 0 error alert. And whenever you opt in, every error that you get is sent to a dedicated Slack channel, and we're done, right? Well, not really. Because what if I have a service that already has a lot of errors? I'll just be overflooded with alerts, right? And I won't handle them. I'll just ignore them. This is because 0 error is not a technical change. It's a change in mindset. And therefore, we needed to address it as such, consciously and gradually. So the first thing we decided to do is to scope the problem and not aim for 0 for everyone, but to start with the newer services, the Nile services, that have a cleaner error baseline. We introduced the infrastructure that I showed earlier, but we also allowed to exclude errors in cases where the fixes could have taken a long time, and we wanted to reduce the noise. We also did it gradually. So we started with a set of about 10 teams who tried out this policy. We gathered common practices, fixed common errors, and only then deployed and applied it for the guild, created a guideline and training in guild days. And the practices we've gathered for onboarding is to first clean your baseline for errors, only then opt in to 0 error policy, and then all you need to do is keep it clean. And teams typically did that by their on-call responsibilities that is in charge not only on production alerts, but on 0 error alerts as well. OK. So we said cleaning up errors. What do we mean by cleaning up errors? So the easiest way to clean an error is to mark it correctly. So if this is an expected error, OK, and we don't have any action item on it, it needs to be marked as business error and not be considered. The best way to clean up an error is to fix it. And this could be a fix to our service, but it could also be a framework fix or a dependent service fix, in which case we need to communicate with the other team and make sure they're fixing the issue. And it could also be just fine-tuning the exception to actually represent the correct error. The least recommended option is to exclude the error. But sometimes it's needed, again, whenever the fix is happening, but might take a long time, and we want to reduce the noise. OK, so cleanup began, and we actually started hearing teams actually enjoying the process. Why? Because they got a really quick feedback loop to the quality that they were improving in real time. So these were quick fixes like adding missing validations on the client side or correcting misconfigured permissions, and also lots of framework fixes we've done along the way that helped everyone. But the other thing that the teams found out after they cleaned this baseline is that 0 error policy allows them to find the edge cases that they would have never found before because it would have been lost in all the production noise. So these were things like rare timeouts, like rare spikes in latency, rare race conditions that we were able to map and fix. And also several teams actually found issues during a security check that the product had, and they would have missed it in any other way because this error would have been, would disappear in the overall noise. OK, so we, or you, cleaned, and I'm happy to share the results with you. We are now at 98% opt-in into 0 error policy of Now services, which is amazing, right? But this is just the first half of the equation, right? Because we aim and we are at 0.5 errors a day per service, which is a 66% improvement over where we were before zero-error policy. So I think you all deserve a round of applause. The ones before were a bit quiet. Applaud to yourself. You've done all this amazing cleanup. OK, so we applied zero-error policy. So we must be at 0, right? Well, unfortunately, not yet, because we still had lots of errors in production. How come? Like, we invested so much in zero-error policy. Well, I want to remind us all that zero-error policy was applied only on null services. And null services are just a small part of our overall services, of our traffic, and of our errors. We still had a lot of legacy that was not clean at all. And we also allowed to exclude errors, right? So this made our zero-error policy quiet, but these were still errors coming back to our clients. So all our legacy services were still at this high bar of 1%, so errors just kept accumulating. At the same time, we were under this huge quality focus, right? With Nirzo and senior management telling us that bug fixes and error fixes should take priority over building new features. So what does this mean? Do we now need to go and clean up all these errors from our legacy system? Well, we decided that that won't be very cost-effective, right? And therefore, we need to scope the problem. So we decided not to aim for complete 0, as we've done before, but to aim for 5 nines availability. This is 99.999% availability, which is not 0, but this is the industry standard, and also would allow us to clean up a massive amount of our errors. Also, after we've done some investigation, we found out that 180 of our services, which is only 4% of our services, generate 98% of the overall errors, right, which is astonishing. So we decided to start with this. The challenge this time was that we felt that up till now, we've only seen the tip of the iceberg, because we were cleaning these shining new null services, right? But dealing with legacy services, we felt like the technical debt there would be so high that it's going to be really costly and maybe impossible to clean those. But we decided to practice the art of the possible and give it a try anyway. OK, so we scoped the problem. We started with our most problematic services. We created a cool dashboard that allows you to very quickly understand what's your availability level and what you need to fix. We created a guideline with best practices on how to troubleshoot these common errors and how to fix them. And we did it gradually as well. We started with about 5 alpha teams. And these teams proved very quickly the art of the possible, because just in 2 weeks, they managed to clean up millions of errors. Okay? So cleanup continued with all these services. And this time, the testimonies were around the art of the possible. So things that we thought would be really, really hard to solve turned out to be not that hard after all. These were mainly things like 503 errors that were considered very difficult because they were borderline between infra and app. But we found, mapped, and fixed those with either introducing optimizations and rate limiting on the application side, or tuning our auto-scaling. Also, the 5 nines initiative allowed us to push and engage cleaning up of technical debt that wasn't prioritized up till that point. So these were null migrations that were promoted, okay, and didn't get priority up till now, or using new infras. And also, we had one team that decided to put a product to end of life just because the ROI on investing and fixing it wasn't worth the product value that it produced. OK, so we cleaned and cleaned and cleaned. Are you curious about the results? Yes. I would have told you anyway, you know. OK, so I'm super excited to share the results. 3 months into this effort, This is all fairly fresh. We are almost at 5 nines. Actually, we're at 4.5 nines. Okay? It's not over yet. Yes, I think applause are due now. But I think even more impressive and exciting is the fact that we cleaned, as part of this effort, almost errors, which is 80% of the errors we had when we began. Which I think is exactly. If you clapped before, you need to cheer your heart out now. Okay, so let's sum up our journey. We started off by improving our monitoring, alerts, and troubleshooting tool. And therefore, we really eased up the process of reactively handling production incidents. Then we moved to a proactive approach and automated the process of design and implementation to prevent issues from being created. We did it with things like guidelines, and afterwards with automation and out-of-the-box tools with Now, and with gradual deploy. But then we did the major revolution. And this all happened only this year. And we completely changed our mindset. And with initiatives like Zero Error and 5 nines, we cleaned up a huge debt of errors. And we're working now on adjustable SLOs that would allow us to maintain this amazing achievement. So, hallelujah. We've reached a zero-error culture. And we can hopefully let our superhero culture peacefully retire. However, I want us all to remember that improvement and reliability is a lifelong journey. We'll always have errors, and we always need to keep an eye on how we improve it even further. So I want to share with you some takeaways I've taken from this journey. Because improvement is this everlasting journey, in order to keep it going and find the next improvement every time, what I felt is really helpful is for us to have a flexible perspective. So we need to be able to zoom out to understand where we are, what we already covered, and what is missing. We need to be able to zoom in and understand the common root causes and what do we need to fix now. And we need to be able to adjust our perspective, zooming in and out, to find just the right scope for the most cost-effective next step. It also reminded me that being a hero is nice, but being at zero is amazing, because it frees us up to do the next amazing thing, to build the next amazing thing, instead of dealing with production issues all day. And it proved once again that anything is possible. If I would have told you last year that that would be the results, I don't think you would have believed me, nor would I. Okay? But with the relevant focus and with this teamwork, we've done it and achieved it together. So, I want to wish us all to be heroes in finding more ways to be zeros. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for listening, and thank you, the Server Guild, and the Infra team, and you, for making these amazing achievements possible. Thank you.